Hello everybody and welcome back to my house renovation diary. So in the last video I introduced you more or less the complete project, and today I will take you with me on a small time lapse of the complete year 2019. So we started here on the construction site in 2018, as you maybe saw in the last video, and today we will I will show you the complete work of the year 2019 in more or less 20 minutes. Yeah, so I would say at that point, sit back and enjoy the video. Yeah, today we start more or less exactly where we left off the last time, and you can see a lot of things happened in the meantime, and it looks a little bit like a battlefield. In any case, this mathematical equation that I found when I'm dismantling the wall panels is really interesting. Maybe you can use it to calculate the future renovation costs or something like that. Who knows? And as you also can see, the stuff with the mineral wool continues in the usual way. As I said in the last video, at the end we will have a total of over 60 cubic meters of mineral wool removed from the building. And then we come to my first real machine achievement, a Makita Demolition hammer. Yeah, this one should really serve me very well in the next years to come. And as you can see, the demolition starts right away on the ground floor, and so the Makita can show what it's capable of straight away. The next thing I had to worry about was simply the logistics. All the stones, all the rubble had to be transported away somehow. So, in order to get access to the house with a wheelbarrow, for example, I tore down the terrace wall and built a ramp accordingly. Once the path for the wheelbarrow is clear, finally the work on the timber frame can begin. And by the way, here is something else that we found when removing the floor covering: a very huge colony of ants under the complete floor throughout the room. They must have lived here for several years, and this is also the reason why the sill beams are in such poor conditions at this point, because this sort of ant finally feed on wet wood. And I'm just thinking about what would have happened if we had actually just moved into this house and then an ant would have appeared in the living room from time to time. Yeah, really disgusting. Yeah, and here I can show you a perfect example what is happening if you do the restoration of such a half-timbered house the wrong way. So this is exactly what the pre-owners of this house did about 40 years ago. And as you may know, the half-timbered houses in Germany are completely built out of oak. So this is normally a really long-lasting type of wood. Yeah? So this is why German half-timbered houses are 200, 300, 400 years old without any problem. But if you do it wrong, then this is happening. So this is some part of the oak beam we replaced here already, and as you may see, there is nothing much left of it. Yeah, and this is the result of the wrong restoration 40 years ago. So we can say 50 years ago this may had looked like this one here. Yeah, so more or less in a good shape. And then 40 years of wet, and then the ants, as you just seen, this is the result. And this is why it is really necessary to be absolutely aware of what you are doing if you are restorating a half-timbered house. So it should therefore be clear that the sill beams need to be replaced, and in order to get access to it, we need to remove the complete floor. Under this area of the house there was originally a basement room, but this was already filled in and sealed with concrete during the last renovation, maybe 40 years ago, and me and my Makita, we had to work quite well to remove the concrete completely. Next, we can finally start with the restoration of the half-timbered wall. However, before we can replace the sill beam, the entire wall has to be placed on heavy-duty supports so that the house doesn't collapse. Yeah? Now that the load has practically been transferred from the half-timbered wall to the heavy-duty supports, we can then begin to remove the foundation consisting of field stones under the sill beam. And in order to be able to restore the framework of the wall itself, old stones must of course also be removed from the complete wall. And that's what's left of the wall at the end of the day. Yeah, and yes, of course, some mineral wool again. As you can see, this is not only in the first floor, it was also used on the ground floor. Yeah, and this is just to get a feeling about how many stones are used in such a wall. And also you may notice how many different types of stones are used here, yeah. And then, for the first time, something was built up instead of demolished, yeah. We started with a new concrete foundation directly under the wall. Maybe you remember the floor plan I showed you the last time, so I can show it again. And here you can see the position in red of the first part of the new base plate. And yeah, this should be expanded at the end under the entire house. Yeah, I can show you maybe the current state. So currently we have 13 parts installed and there are still 3 to 5 parts missing. For the restoration of the first half timbered wall, we received some oak from my father-in-law, which had been in storage for 45 years. So this is really valuable these days. And that was one of the reasons why our master carpenter was so enthusiastic when installing the oak beams on the half-timbered wall. But as you can see here, not only the sill beam of the wall had to be replaced, but also various other parts of the wall. But that was actually the beginning of the restoration of the half-timbered framework of the house, and I was really satisfied with the results. But that, of course, was just the beginning, so then I started removing the floor on the other side accordingly and started digging, everything by hand and with shovel and wheelbarrow again. And I can tell you this was really hard work. And then we finally have some moving pictures again. So this was also one of the few videos I have from that time. Yeah? It is now the end of September, beginning of October 2019. So this means nearly 1 year of restoration already done. And as you can see, a lot already happened. And I think now is a good time to briefly explain our plan to you again. Yeah. So the main problem is that such an old house doesn't have a proper floor construction as we might know it from today's houses. And the next problem is that the framework and the sill beams of the framework require a certain minimum height and you don't have enough space for a proper floor construction. And that's why we have to work downwards. So in this case, this means that the entire house has to be excavated by about 60 centimeters on the entire 180 square meter floor area. So here you can already see a piece of the new floor structure consisting of a corresponding layer of gravel and the new concrete floor slab. And as you can see here, the entire space between the floor slab and the sill beam is required for the future floor construction, yeah, made of insulation layer, screed, underfloor heating and so on. You might imagine the biggest challenge when retrofitting such a floor structure in an existing house is of course that you somehow have to get under the existing walls, yeah, with everything. I can tell you this is possible, but it takes some time. From here we can move to the future dining room, and of course a lot has already happened here too. So the floor is still there, but it will also be expanded in the upcoming weeks. And does anyone remember the kitchen? Not much is left of the kitchen, as you can see. It has currently been converted into more of a building materials store, I would say. Here we take a closer look at the chimney, which also has to be demolished. Unfortunately, it is based on the concrete floor, and yeah, as I said, we now need to dig 60 centimeters deeper, and this is not possible when a chimney is mounted on it. And in these small rooms it was particularly unpleasant to dig. It was very narrow and therefore very tiring to work here in these small areas. Okay guys, then let's take a quick look at the rest of the ground floor. And here you can see the old main electrical distribution. This also has to be dismantled and moved to the future service room from the house. Okay, then let's move through the dining room and also to my future gaming room. Here you can also see the rest of the wood stuff. Yeah, and here you might miss a wall to the past, to the toilet, which was located in this area. So this was already a victim of me and my new Makita. And you can see everywhere is concrete floor. This also has to be removed. Yeah, due to our task that we have to dig here 60 centimeters downwards. Here, this is the old room, which will become in the future our new service room, as I mentioned also in the last video. Also here, we removed the floor and the ceiling also. So you may have recognized it already. In every rooms, we already dismantled all of the plates from the ceiling and also the mineral wool insulation, of course. So that was already done a few weeks ago. Yeah, and this was one of the rare video footage from the beginning of October 2019, a little house tour. And yeah, as I said, a lot already has happened, especially if you maybe compare it to the last diary video, but you can imagine there's still a lot of work to do. And then, as already mentioned, the next thing we had to do was take care of the chimney. As you can see, it is relatively large, so we couldn't get it directly from the roof to tear it down. And that's why we borrowed a mast from a friend. And with the help of this pretty cool machine, demolishing the chimney wasn't a problem either. Yeah? Although in the end, the whole operation took a whole day to remove it from the outside. After that, it took me a few extra days to completely demolish the interior chimney. And as you can see, there is also a serious pile of rubble coming out of it. But then a few days later, everything was cleaned up and the chimney was a thing of the past. And only a hole in the roof remind us of it actually. Then it was finally time to take care of the floor on this side of the half-timbered wall as well. Here too, the concrete had to be demolished with my Makita first, and this was really some hard work because the concrete was really hard to demolish, but at the end I managed it, and also I have to dig again with my shovel and my wheel chart to get all the rubbish out of the house. The wall on which the power distribution was mounted also had to be demolished, and this is where my photo was taken, which has been my profile picture on YouTube here ever since. I also took care of the concrete floor here in the dining room. And so I'm slowly getting some practice in it. Then I found this here. This seems to be an old historical flower bed or maybe a water bucket for animals. So it is located right on the former corner of the half-timbered house. And this is something interesting. This is what you found below the concrete. Here we take a little look outside at the mound of earth. Here you can see the earth I have already taken out of the house with my own hands using a shovel and a wheelbarrow. Now here you might wondering why I'm digging such a ditch here. So this is needed for changing the main electrical distribution in another room, because the main power cable also needs to be laid through the ground to the other room, and this is the new main power distribution. Here we take another quick look at the new floor construction under the other half-timbered wall, and you can see everything here is on heavy duty supports, and the number of them is constantly increasing in this house. Yeah, and now I can show you my last video from 2019. This was recorded on the 27th December, so this was really the last day in that year I was on my private building site. And we can do another little tour through the ground floor of the construction site. So of course a lot has happened since the last tour in October. But however, I have to say that at this point I had really reached my personal limit. The whole year 2019 was extremely exhausting for us. On the one hand, physically, of course, because all the unusual physical work that was done was extremely exhausting for me. But also mentally, because the whole construction site actually only got worse with every passing day, and the actual goal is getting further and further away from us, every day. And then you quite naturally get to a point where you no longer believe that you can actually manage this construction site and that you can really complete this project. You can't even imagine how many wheelbarrows I already managed to get out of the house so far. And walking through the house here at that point, I realized that this was maybe just 20% of that's what is still needed, plus all the other work what is still to do. And this is so much work to do that you really lose your faith in yourself that you can actually do it. And to be honest, I really was a little desperate at that point. I then allowed myself a few days off to come up with a precise plan of how we have to continue with this construction site in order to have at least a chance of successfully completing the project. And after a few days of reflection, I practically came up with this solution and put this solution into action directly in January 2020. And you can see it here on the picture. I bought a mini excavator. And here I can present you my brand new, maybe from 2003 or something like that, brand new Kubota K008, a small mini excavator with nearly 900 kilograms, but the thing is it is small enough so I can work with it inside my house. But of course that's not all. Since I didn't feel like driving around with the wheelbarrow anymore, I bought a track dumper. And this one, as you can see in the picture, was really completely brand new. It is a Shepach, I don't know, DP 6500 I think, with 500 kilogram capacity. So it's definitely a perfect match for my little Kubota to work inside my house. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I present you the first time I was working with my own Kubota mini excavator inside my house. I can definitely see or hear you laughing, but yeah, that's what it looked like when you really operate a mini excavator for the very first time. Yeah, it's actually more difficult than it looks at the first glance. And especially here in this relatively small space, it is of course particularly difficult if you don't quite know how to handle the controls and everything. Okay, so let's switch to the time lapse at this point. And yeah, by the way, this is also the birth of the style in which I present my videos to you, namely by recording my work and presenting it to you in a time lapse. A particular advantage is that you can't directly see how slowly I'm working, because if the worst comes to the worst, I can still speed up the time lapse a little. But in general, I really like these time lapse recordings personally, because I have the opportunity to present you a relatively lengthy work in a reasonably interesting way. And every time something, quite interesting happening, so like now, where I damage my door, I can simply switch to the real time and then back to the time lapse again. Okay, so we are now in January 2020 and we have some new machines and of course some new hope, and in the next video we will continue at exactly this point. Yeah, and this was more or less a complete year 2019 here on our construction site. So I can understand in such a short conclusion, 20 minutes, yeah, with a few photos and a few small videos, it is really hard for you to imagine how many effort is needed to get to that point. And this is why our year 2019 was really exhausting for us. So as I mentioned, yeah, physically and also mentally, because you also have to imagine, or you have to remember that we both, so my wife and me, we also have full-time jobs. This means we are working 40 to 50 hours per week on our job. Then we have 2 children which we have to manage, and then I have to work 30 to 35 hours per week here on our construction site. And as I also mentioned in the video, our construction site is getting worse and worse every day. So this was really challenging. And yeah, at the end I showed you 2020 comes with new machines and a new plan for me personally to manage this building site. And this I will call the beginning of 2020 was the rise of the machines maybe. And this is directly where we will continue in the next video. So thanks for watching. I hope you had fun. I know I did. And then we see us again in the next video. Bye bye everybody.